Thank you for being here. So my name is Benjamin Patok. I'm, as introduced, I work for Bovida. Some people call it Bovida, so we do these little humidification pouches that everybody loves. And if you don't know them, we're still outside with a booth. Come by, get a sample. So I want you to just have everybody introduce yourselves really quickly, and we're going to dive into the matter. So we'll start with Chris, please.
Hey, servus. My name is Chris Uhlig. I'm with Ceres Greenhouse Solutions, and we do energy-efficient greenhouses for cannabis, but also for other purposes.
My name is Adam Coates. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Decibel Cannabis Company. We're a cultivator and manufacturer in Canada. Yeah, that's it.
Good afternoon. Thank you for staying here so late on this afternoon. My name is Lori Glauser. I was the CEO of Evio Labs, a 12-lab testing lab company in the US and Canada. And I also have worked in consulting area. Now I'm here in Germany looking at opportunities in the German market.
Beautiful. Yeah, you can applaud. That's fine. Thank you. So let's talk about strategies for developing and marketing cannabis products and beyond and before. So the way I want to look at it is, first, if you want to enter the cannabis market, that can be a challenge per se, right? So let's talk about the challenges that you guys faced just trying to be a part of that market. It's like, just anyone, how you feel?
Well, I can start. We founded the company in 2011. Before we had a first cannabis product, and then 2015 that cannabis product came along. So the first things we learned is we had to separate our websites, because all of a sudden banks were saying, well, you can't do business with you anymore. So it's little things like that along the way that we've learned.
Yes. So I started in the business in 13, 14, doing compliance licensing for clients, and then moved into the testing space pretty soon thereafter. What we found at first was actually for many of us, it was actually fairly easy. Coming from industry, I came from the energy consulting space. Coming in at that time was relatively easy. Starting a company was relatively easy. Getting licensed back then was relatively easy, but it very quickly got very hard. And it got very hard, why? Because competition started to increase. Regulators started really locking down regulations, and costs increased. And then, of course, banks, I had to reopen 12 bank accounts in the US as well, so multiple times over. So it was, I would say that the real challenges that emerged later largely were regulatory and fitting into a semi-illegal market.
Yeah, and I think the regulatory aspect is something that's really important to consider as you're starting a business, as you're thinking about getting products to market, and whatever that market may be, whether it's the US, Canada, or some of the other kind of more emerging markets. It's really important to understand the regulatory, and just about in every market, maybe aside from the US, you're very limited in terms of what you can do from a marketing standpoint. So you can almost throw out, all the different playbooks that are out there for a consumer good or a medical good. My biggest advice, to you, if you're starting up a business or looking to get products to market, is focus on the product. All of the bells and whistles of social media and, marketing agencies, and, don't spend a ton of time or a ton of money and resources on what the brand is going to be, what it looks like, what it feels like. Obviously, you need to have something that looks well, but the most important thing and the most marketable thing that you're going to have is your product. It matters what's inside the jar, not necessarily what the jar looks like, and that is what your consumers are going to remember. To put it in perspective, Decibel has a brand called General Admission. It is by far the largest product brand in Canada. Only 2 weeks ago did we have a functioning website. And that's not a joke. So we focused on the product, being innovative with the products that we put out, understanding what the addressable markets were and where their pockets of volumes were, And that allowed us to be tremendously successful as we focused on the product and how it was going to meet our consumers' needs. And I think you can still do that in all the sort of different jurisdictions of selling and marketing cannabis. And that's the biggest marketing tool.
All right, so just directly to that. So your biggest challenge then was product development?
I think the biggest challenge is understanding the right segments to go into and to compete in, and how do you find your edge in those, sort of larger, segments in the industry that will allow you to be successful and build a profitable company. Because, some of the products that sound really great, that, may be more of the sort of the purest products, may not have a very wide sort of consumer base. And if you're building really great products, but they're really expensive and they have a very low addressable market, you're going to be very challenged to build a successful business. I think the moderator here has talked a lot about, the beer industry, and I agree, but the beer industry also has brands like Corona and Bud Light and Miller Lite, and those big brands, those aren't the most sophisticated products necessarily, but they're the ones that have the most broad appeal, and you need to really think about that as you're, building your business and, building your sort of product and marketing strategy.
Yeah, interesting. So I like the idea of the wine, actually, but also because, we live like in Germany, like alcohol is fairly mildly regulated compared to other environments, right? You can buy beer in every supermarket when you're 16, right? And we're probably here and somewhere tobacco, same thing. So in that venue here, there might be a tobacco vending machine. So you still have to swipe an ID card, right? But if, like in some nightclubs, but you're not allowed to go in under 18. But this doesn't even have that, right? So my approach was always to regulation is not so much as, will cannabis be as wine, like regulate from a regulatory perspective, but what will the regulation of cannabis will do to those industries? Because cannabis will be the most regulated drug or legal drug in the beginning, right? So let's talk about, and I think regulation plays a big part of this. So and you all have faced regulatory struggles probably. So I'd love to tap your mind on that, really. So what were the biggest struggles? How do you overcome them? So what's that?
Sure. So one thing I've learned along the way, and I would advise others going into this business, is first start out not only looking at the federal and or state laws that are coming out, but also start early looking at the other compliance areas. Look at the GMP rules, look at ISO rules. Don't wait to hire a consultant to put a line in your business plan. Hire a GMP consultant. Start today reading what those rules are, what those requirements are, and build your business around that. Next, once you've built your business around these rules, you've built your SOPs. SOPs are not shelfware. They're not something that you write, somebody writes them all, you win this application, yay, it's exciting, and you train everybody the first time, and then people kind of forget they exist. So you really need to make sure those SOPs are true working documents, and keeping your teams on point, reviewing those SOPs, and modifying the SOPs to match your actual day-to-day operations is also really important.
From building these facilities perspective, we're facing the same thing, right, with GMP, GACP in the US. It's not even a topic for most people. Some customers that we talk to think a little bit into the future, but we as a provider of buildings, we're actually dealing with an international market. We're designing, building here in Europe. We have customers in Australia, in New Zealand, in the Caribbean. And because of that, you get exposed to different types of regulations, right? Different local regulations, different types of GMP and GACP regulations. And you also see that there's different interpretation of these regulations. And so what we are learning as a business is to essentially not necessarily try to hit all these rules, but be prepared for our customers that when we are building something in the US, that when the market opens up in 2-3 years, that facility still functions and that they can upgrade it or add features so that they can get those certifications when they are needed. And I think that little foresight, right, is important in the business. And what I want to turn it to is you can't do all of this on your own. You always need to have a partner, someone that you need to work with, right? And you need to find the right partners as you are building your business that brings that expertise to the table, advises you, and helps you to get there in the future.
Yeah, and look, like regulations are going to change, and they're going to change over time. And what you start with is not what you're going to end with by any stretch. And so, a lot of mistakes that we've seen in Canada, and there's been a lot, and frankly, we've made a lot of mistakes as well. But one of the things that's so important is building optionality and flexibility into what you're doing. So, as Chris was talking about, as he's building out facilities, he's offering to his clients, the optionality, in case GMP or GACP is going to be required for that certain region. That's a small example, and don't getting married to one idea because that's the way the regulation is today. There is going to be evolution that will create opportunity, but if you're bolted down into something that becomes immovable because of it becomes too much to invest to make the change, or you're essentially committed into a certain strategy, and then the regulations change, and you're not able to pivot, and you're going to be left behind. So building in that flexibility, around your systems and around whether it is your facility or strategy is going to be so important. But the bedrock of everything that you do, I'll go back to kind of my earlier comment, needs to be about the product, about what consumer you're trying to address, and what sides of opportunity are there, and always providing great value for money. And I don't mean cheap. I mean for whatever you're doing. If you're the most expensive product, that's totally fine, but you need to provide the value that's going to deliver against that. And so that is where the regulation and the restrictions and guidelines that are coming out, you can use them to your advantage in a lot of ways, and that is going to be a huge strategic advantage of keeping your business nimble and able to react to these changes that will more than likely over time open up opportunities for your business to flourish.
Yeah, I would add to that too. In order to be flexible and what I've seen in the market with all the clients that I've worked with over the years, those who are most focused in the beginning tend to be the most successful, because if you may only have one really fantastic product, but rules are going to change. Your formulation is going to change. You're going to have personnel turnover. So you might get really excited in the beginning and want to do a whole line of products, but that's that's multiple times the complexity. So staying really focused in the beginning on doing one thing really well and perfecting that before replicating is also a lesson that I learned early on.
Oh, again, going back to Canada, there's a lot of chasing of shiny pennies. We started in craft cultivation. That's still sort of our hero product in a lot of ways with the brand Quest, but that gave us then permission to go out, and then we got into the vape category. And then there was a nice line extension into some other, categories, and sort of doing things one at a time in a way, allowed us to stay focused, but also, build the business in such a way where it can then sustain some more complexity.
Yeah, I can double that. I mean, Boveda is really just a one-trick pony, right? We only have one product in different variations, but that's it. So for us, the challenge was, you build it for, let's say, like a recreational market. All of a sudden, you have customers that are in the medicinal market, and then it's like, oh, they have moisture regulations. You have to build around that, and they have GMP and all these type of things. For instance, for us, a U.S. company, and we source everything in the United States, we'll never be EU GMP, because all of our suppliers would also have to be EU GMP. Since we source in the United States, we can't do it, so we'll have to build a production line over here to achieve that, and so on, and so on, and so on. So, but yet we're still GMP, FDA GMP, so there's ways around it, some places. But the focus point, what you guys mentioned, I think is very important, right? You have to be really good in your core service or product, right? All right. So you have a product or service. The next thing is you're not alone, right? So how do you differentiate
I mean, my perspective on it is one of the things that we've done really well is customer service. You know, to me, it's making sure you have a really great product that serves, you know, and basically serves a consumer need and consumer tensions, but it's followed up with customer service. I think those who are in, you know, sort of more emerging, I call them emerging markets like Germany and Australia and the UK and some of the others that are making headlines, unfortunately what a lot of Canadian LPs are doing or kind of other LPs that are exporting into these markets is they're basically dumping and running. Essentially, they've made the sale, they've got product move over, and then it's kind of wipe their hands and move on. Servicing your customer, and that, like, it sounds like so basic, but it's amazing how much that is not done. And understanding and being there for them and following up and problem solving when things don't go right, because let's face it, it's cannabis and it's a very fickle plant. You know, and every once in a while something is going to go wrong, and it's how you back that up by being there and being partners in what you're doing and actually making sure that you provide that great service. So to me, that is the second way to stand out, is having exceptional product that is as consistent as you can get, that is innovative in addressing consumers' needs, and then following it up with customer service and just doing what you say you're going to do. And you know, that seems to be a very novel concept in cannabis.
And yeah, and I think it's funny, right? Listening to Adam, you're looking at it from the plant perspective and bringing the plant into a product that you then sell to customers, and it's a very similar story for us. You know, that's so funny. I mean, we have, as a product, we have a product that's unique worldwide. We have patents and we have IP to protect that and protect it into the future, but that's the core of it, right? Then on top of that, the focus is on delivering that consistent product. In our case, it's those greenhouses to our customers. A big thing that we realized early on is also customer service, because when you build a facility like this, you can't just run away after that. Customers do not know how to run it. So we started essentially incorporating into our contracts an offering that we stay engaged with our customers to make sure that they get what they bought from us with regards to the outcome, how that environment is controlled, how those rooms and those systems are functioning. And it's the same story, right? It's just, I mean, we're doing a completely different business and we're supplying cannabis growers, but the story behind it, the business terms, are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to add something? No, I'm fine. So no, just because so it's customer service. It's probably not just limited to the cannabis industry per se. That's more like a general truth, I reckon. Unless you wanted to say something else, you're like, no, customer service sucks. Don't do it. Is that kind of like also like the pathway into like real customer loyalty? Because that's what we're all looking for, right? We want loyal customers. I don't know, Laura, you want to start in maybe?
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So in my area, we provided B2B services, but I also worked with a number of customers that had product. I watched the product development process of companies, so I saw them from the formulation stage through the development stage, and I saw which products were successful and which were not. And I think, of course, the quality point is most important. You know, you have quality, you have focus on one product, and really getting that feedback from customers. I would just say that it is like virtually any other products. That's really what it comes down to, is making sure you're really hyper focused on the customer. And as it comes to the competitors, I think if you really focus on your customer, listen to your customer, and if they go to a competitor, ask them why did they go to that competitor, and work with them from that way. Really develop those relationships. So yeah, it's customer service.
I would actually take that another step further, and that, again, that's from personal experience. But you can look at customer service as part of a P&L and say, you know, I've got to be profitable, right? And I'm gonna, you know, put a number in there, and once I've used up that number, I'm done, right? that doesn't work in an industry like cannabis where mistakes are being made, right? I mean, Adam just mentioned it. We know that there are suppliers, there's problems with builders, and in our case, there's different regulations in different countries and knowledge that's there or not there. If we don't engage with our customers beyond just looking at a P&L and just saying, look, it doesn't matter, this customer needs to be successful, then we will not survive. And I would go that far.
And I mean, customer service sounds so, cliche, but it just is not happening in a very meaningful way in cannabis, I don't think. And I think parts of the problems that you see in some cannabis companies failing is that the folks in the C-suite who are making decisions aren't aware of what's being said about their product, about their business. And, it goes such a long way. Like, myself and our head of marketing product, who's here with me today, we used to answer the customer emails that's on the label of every one of our products. We used to personally do that. Now, it's not scalable for us to do that all the time, but it's still an inbox in our Outlook that we look at every single day to understand when stuff is going wrong, what are consumers saying, and then how can we fix that? Or is there an opportunity in these things? And it's amazing when you actually respond back and say, hey, you're right. That's not great. Here's how I'm going to fix this for you. Or, we, have big customer in Israel where we ship our product. Something wasn't looking or feeling right and flew over there the next day and walked through it and, made a solution that fit for everybody. And so you have to go above and beyond to support it because they'll remember that, and it becomes easier when things, don't go right all the time, that you can overcome them and you're not losing a piece of business. And so it sounds really simple, but just showing up and being there and doing what you're going to say, it's a very simple business, but it's also not being done enough in cannabis. And I think that's also what is really hurting our industry as well, with some less than, I say, quality actors.
Yeah, if I could add to that too, it may be that we're not budgeting customer service the way we should. We're putting in this big marketing budget. Maybe it's 10, 15, 20%, of revenue is marketing. But what is marketing? Marketing is keeping the existing customers happy. And perhaps that's a gap that we're not really focused on investing into the customer service area.
Mm-hmm. All right, so to summarize, it's kind of like a simple business in a complicated, regulated world, right?
I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, in a lot of ways, it has been been made overly complex. Like, don't get me wrong, it is a tremendously complex and capital-intensive business. Like, there's no question, but I think in all that, it's very easy to get lost in the fundamentals, right? Or have the fundamentals be lost of really damn good product, big addressable market, service your customer well. Like, there's no secret. I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but I think because it moves so quick, because the regulations can be very confusing and changing all the time, and there's a whole bunch of different theses and approaches to this industry, that those key elements can really get lost. And if you do those things well, then I think you can really be successful. And I think Decibel is a great example. Is we're profitable, we're growing, we're cash flowing, and there's not really any Canadian licensed producers out there that can really say the same.
Yeah, we were joking. It was like, oh, you're that one profitable company in Canada? Okay, so. Because time is running low, are there any questions from the audience? Now's the chance. No?
You have taught them everything they need to know.
You think?
Good job.
Good. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody on the panel.
Danke.